When lawmakers met to approve a state budget earlier this year, the projections weren't good. Falling oil and gas revenues have hit the state hard. And to avoid raising taxes, lawmakers approved moving around funds and drawing down reserves for current government operations. But, big but here, economists told state leaders this week that looming budget issues aren't going away anytime soon. How do you think the state should shore up its budget? Should tax increases actually be on the table? Go to NewMexicoInFocus.org. Tell us what you think. I'm joined at the table tonight by Tom Garrity with the Garrity Group PR, Phil C. Marquez from Talk Radio Inc. Welcome back, Phil. We'll talk about that in a second. Alicia Manzano's here, first time from Strategies 360. Good to be with you. Glad you're here. And Sophie Martin's back, an attorney and editor of DukeCityFix.com. And Sophie, wow, I have to say this. When you start drawing down reserves and you start taking money from other programs.
Wait, aren't the reserves what we're calling the Rainy Day Fund? I mean,
that's right.
For at least 2 years around this table, the Rainy Day Fund.
That's right. And this is how it starts. This is how it starts. When you start hearing politicians talking about one-time drawdowns, that always, to me, is a problem sign, because it never is a one-time deal if your finances are going down.
I was going to say, if it truly is a one-time, as opposed to using that money to fund salary, to fund recurring expenses, that's what we worry about.
Right.
Is that it will become something that we become dependent on. And I cut you off before you got to say the part about how there are cuts happening.
Right.
I'm not sure that there's been enough scrutiny placed on the vetoes that we saw from Governor Martinez.
Thank you.
There was an across-the-board cut of anything under, I think it was $10,000. Those were funds that groups actually needed. And so, we are seeing both cuts and drawdowns on our funds. When we talk about taxes, because I think finally the time is here that we talk about taxes. We had cuts under the previous governor, we have cuts under this governor. We cannot cut our way to prosperity. It does not work, and we've seen that in our state and certainly around the country.
Is that a settled issue in our state, do you think?
I don't.
That we can't cut our way anymore, do you think?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't think it is.
Right.
Or to put it another way, I'm not sure that everybody's yet on board with the idea that we might need to ramp up our taxes a little bit. What I think is really important at this point, worth mentioning, the tax increases that I've heard bandied about so far, a gasoline tax increase, we're talking about food tax again, for goodness sake.
Yep.
These fall disproportionately heavily on people who are suffering the most in our state, low-income individuals, folks for whom every paycheck is a lifeline. And we need to take a closer look at how we tax in this state. If we're going to increase taxes, it cannot be regressive. It has to hit people who can afford it the most.
Phil, to stay on taxes, or revenue, as it's called, in Santa Fe. Is it time? I mean, I've been sitting here at this table, a lot of us at this table, for 3 years saying, at some point, we're going to have to think about revenue enhancements. Is it time right now?
I love those words, revenue enhancement. No, it's not.
Okay.
I'm a no tax guy.
Ever? For any reason?
I'll tell you what, one of the things that when 2008 hit, 2007, 8, and the economy went to crazy, businesses had to adjust quickly. And they had to make the cuts. And they had to do a lot of things that they didn't want to do. The state has to take a look seriously at these areas. And I know every time, every department says, not us, not us, not us. But the fact is, most New Mexicans, our state is not doing well. And adding taxes to the people in this state and adding more burden on very little income that's coming in to a lot of people. I was just up in Farmington the other day. You talk about an area that's depleted.
Right.
Businesses that have closed down, oil companies that had 600, 700, 800 people working are not there anymore.
Right.
And we're looking at a major change, because even if the drilling started tomorrow, it's going to take a while for that to catch on. But the bottom line is, I'm just not a tax guy. You're going to have to really prove to me that you're really making the changes to adjust to those taxes.
You wouldn't be alone for Phil Marquez. You wouldn't be alone. But Alicia, I ask again, are we at a line in the sand here for New Mexico? I mean, I hear Phil's point. We can't individually take on much more burden. But is it not on all of us to fix our own problems here by shouldering some of the burden individually in a light way? Does that make sense to you in some capacity?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I want to say that what they did is a fix for now, but it's not sustainable.
Gotcha.
Let's be honest. As long as we continue to depend on a single industry, oil and gas, we're going to continue to see these problems. And not to say that the oil and gas industry isn't important to New Mexico, they absolutely are. But we need to diversify, and that starts with leadership. And so I would call on the governor and the administration to look at different revenue enhancements, but also look at public policy solutions to this issue. And look, I'm in public relations, I know optics. I see the governor out doing positive PR, and it makes people feel good. But I can tell you what will make people feel good is having a job, being able to provide for their families, and being able to send their children for higher education. And higher ed just got cut this last legislative session.
That's right.
So now the onus is again on tuition rate hikes.
Right.
And so I also want to stand on that promise of that young person who attends New Mexico State or UNM or Western in Silver City, that they can graduate at an affordable rate and then find a job right here in the state of New Mexico. And right now, I don't feel like we can stand on that promise.
Well said. Good stuff there. Revenue and taxes. I mean, Sophie made the point. There are a tax is not a tax is not a tax. The food tax is certainly not the same as other types of taxes. What would we stomach if we had to do revenue enhancements now?
Well, I mean,
The food tax is a toughie for a lot of people.
yeah.
You know?
Well, first off, I'm going to make it a 50-50 kind of deal. I am not in favor. I don't think we're at the point yet of raising taxes or revenue enhancements, and here's the reason why. Yes, oil and gas revenue, energy revenues are down for the state, but also our income taxes, because the recession is dead.
That's right.
Right.
It's
Now,
way
the
down.
recession is
Yeah.
actually very much alive.
The economy is dead.
Right.
And as a result, you know, if let's say you increase business taxes on, or even just income taxes on a recessionary economy, I mean, you're just going to drive more people out of the state now, where migration is still very much a thing in New Mexico, more so up in the Farmington and Las Cruces areas than we've seen over the last several years. So, you know, really stomaching, you know, revenue enhancements or taxes, really, I don't think we're at that point. Well, we are at a point, though, right now for a game changer. And that game changer is how you started off the segment talking about the rainy day fund or the permanent fund. You know, you take the $2 billion or 10% of the permanent fund total, and you go towards a one-time expense. And yeah, you know, the camel nose gets under the tent, right? But really, what are you going to do? You get a lot of publicity that New Mexico is taking the recession seriously. The only state right now that is in the recession, west of the Mississippi, we invest $2 billion. We're going to get a lot of publicity, but more, you know what? We're going to be able to improve roads. We're going to make some one-time fixes to education. We're going to be able to make up that huge deficit, perhaps, which needs to be addressed with respect to Medicaid. You know, we need a game changer right now, and taxes, revenue enhancements, whatever you call it, is just not going to do it.
Weigh in on this one if you would, readers, listeners, watchers, viewers. We want to hear from you on this. Now, when we return to the line, we talk about the latest developments in the debate over the proposed Albuquerque rapid transit system.